Good morning, everyone. Spring is on the way, and for many people, that means the start of allergy season. But as Michael George explains, there are some things you could be doing right now to make spring a little more bearable.
Brandy Keith is allergic to, well, just about everything.
Anything outside, grasses, trees, weeds, even cats and dogs.
And like many allergy sufferers, things get even worse in the spring when tree pollen is everywhere.
Nasal congestion, itchy eyes, runny nose, coughing.
But the experts say if you take some precautions, you won't have to hide indoors all spring. Dr. Flavia Hoyt from National Jewish Health says if you have a doctor-prescribed steroid for allergies, you should be taking it now.
It takes a couple weeks to build up, and you want it to really be at its peak, treating the inflammation fully when the pollen starts at full force.
Are there things we could be doing at home to reduce the severity of allergies?
So as much as possible, keeping windows closed in the house as well as in the car.
Come here.
Our furry friends also bring pollen to us. And so, some patients will say, but I'm not allergic to my dog. But if the dog's in the bed, then you're sleeping with the pollen that the dog has just rolled around in.
Doctors also advise after spending time outside, take a shower or change your clothes to get rid of pollen. Keith is taking precautions ahead of time.
Allergy shots, taking Allegra, Zyrtec. My nasal flushes are very important, followed by my prescription nasal sprays.
It won't eliminate your allergies, but it could make them much easier to handle. Michael George, CBS News, New York.
Experts also say windy days have the most pollen, so if your allergies are severe, try and limit your time outside on those windy days. So our pediatrician, Dr. Keith Watson, is here joining us this morning to talk about allergies really for everybody. Good to have you here, including yourself. We heard someone in the piece say, is there anything I can do to limit the exposure or what I do? And you said you can move.
Move to Arizona. It's great this time of year.
Just can't avoid it if we're here, right?
No. Yeah.
You said you started feeling the symptoms of allergies like January.
I did, and I've lived here 20 years. This is not my home state, but I've lived here 20 years, and I have never had allergies. Mine are seasonal. They occur in the spring, and they typically hit me around April to May. I had started having allergies at the end of January.
Wow.
And so that I'm concerned that this is really going to be an allergy season for us.
So our kids are now in their spring sports. So there's softball, there's baseball, then coming up soon there'll be spring practice for football and all of that. They can't avoid being outside in those scenarios. So what should we be doing now, if anything?
Depends upon your severity, but severe enough symptoms, obviously talk to your doctor if you feel like you need to, but there are medications to help limit the response. The piece obviously said it wouldn't cure your allergies, but it might make them bearable. So there are medications like Zyrtec, Allegra, Claritin. There's allergy nasal sprays. There's even allergy eye drops, which I have to use because my eyes itch. The key to remember is some of them, but not all of them, but some of them take time to kind of build up in your system. So if you can know when your allergies are and you can start before the season, it's helpful.
That really is key, yeah.
Some of them work the day you take them, so it's not as big a deal.
And depending on how bad you're feeling anyway, you may need something regardless, like the day that you're feeling bad. And let's be honest, suffering from allergies and the symptoms can make you feel really crummy.
You can feel sick with allergies. Itchy eyes, runny nose, sore, scratchy throat, headache, fatigue, all of these things can come from allergies. And when you experience that day in and day out, it becomes problematic for some people.
Do people ever experience fever from allergies?
There is a specific thing called hay fever. That's a little different topic, but typical allergies don't cause fever.
Don't present fever. Then you're probably dealing with something else if you've got fever associated with those symptoms. The piece also talked about the fact that if you've been outside, you've been around the pollen, remember it's on your clothing, it's on your hands. So if you've been outside on a windy day, pollen is on your clothing, you go sit on your sofa, then it's in the sofa. If you're continuing to sneeze, that's probably why.
Right, and open windows, and it's a beautiful spring day, and your windows are open, and pollen can blow in, and again, your dogs, and if they're outside, you're not allergic to your dog, but if your dog rolls in the grass, which every dog rolls in the grass, The dog brings the pollen in on its fur and then gets it all over the furniture. So it gets in your house. There's no stopping it, but you can limit it.
Is there a scenario where there needs to be some prescription medication?
If the allergies are severe enough, you can prescribe. People that have really severe allergies that actually can have life-threatening reactions, you can get allergy injections on a monthly or weekly basis to prevent them. My mom was a severely allergic person in her younger years, and she received allergy injections from an allergy specialist once a month.
So if
for
it gets that
years.
bad for your patients, you would send them on to a specialist.
If it's severe enough that I can't control them with medicine and with simple things, yes, you would refer someone on to a specialist to discuss possibly allergy injections.
Okay. We always like to remind people the conversations you and I are having here. You are an expert. I am not, obviously, but if he's not your doctor, talk to your doctor,
Correct.
right?
If they're that
Absolutely.
bad and you feel like you need to have a conversation, talk with your doctor. There may be things you can do that you're not doing. There may be things that they can prescribe, or they can get you to someone who can control these symptoms so that you don't have to live with them.
Well, we appreciate your perspective. Thank you.
You're welcome.
See you in a couple of weeks. All right, when we come back, young people about mental health. Mid-morning, we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Many children and teenagers having a mental health crisis end up in hospital emergency rooms because there's nowhere else to go for help. A recent study shows they often don't get professional help after they leave there. Some just land back in the ER again. Research found more than 1/4 of children return to the hospital within 6 months. Some return within a week. National investigative correspondent Stephen Stock and his team visited the front lines where medical staff, parents, and children are dealing with what has become a life or death crisis. You should know this story includes some frank conversations about the mental health crisis that for some might be difficult to hear.
Michaela shares her story,
You're just kind of left alone.
not because of where she is at age 20,
It kind of feels hopeless.
but because of where she was just a couple of years ago.
For me, I would be crying out for help.
Inside a hospital emergency room in Colorado for the 8th time, suffering a mental health crisis.
It wouldn't happen until I came to a point where it was too late.
Michaela ended up in the ERs because she was suicidal or in acute crisis. The first time when she was 12. She now considers herself a survivor.
It definitely made me stronger.
I was in the ER for 19 days.
Daniel considers himself a survivor too.
The ER is inhumane and not the right place to go for mental health. All right, let me show you the oldest one.
Daniel shared his story after a mental health crisis landed him in a Boston ER when he was 17. He's been in the ER 3 different times in the last year alone.
They don't get what they need. They are still trying to find the help they need, and it's so damn difficult.
So many stories we heard, different journeys, one problem.
Stuff to do.
Young people suffering a mental health crisis ending up in the last place doctors think they should.
This is such a big problem around the country. This is the front lines now on treating mental health among juveniles, is the emergency department.
It is not an ideal place to be.
In January, we spent a day with Dr. Kevin Carney, head of the ER at Children's Hospital Colorado.
This morning when I came in, we had 5 patients who came in overnight into the emergency department for mental health reason.
Children's Hospital Colorado says last year system-wide, they saw an average of 554 children every month in their ER with mental health issues. Housed there to keep them safe, but where the children got little to no treatment.
The psych-ED, hoping I could check bed status for
Staff members spend hours every day calling around Colorado,
no beds today.
looking for places where kids can get treatment.
Maybe across the whole system 4 or 5 beds in the whole state today.
Okay, thank you.
And I have 8 waiting for beds already,
Okay, no beds today.
and I have 4 more to be seen today, and it's only noon.
Which is why so many children wait hours, days, even weeks inside the ER.
We've seen a significant rise.
We found a similar crisis at Cook Children's Hospital in Fort Worth, Texas.
But we're seeing even younger and younger kids, 8 and 9-year-olds, that are expressing that they want to hurt themselves, that they want to die.
Over the last 2 years, they've seen an average of 330 kids a month with mental health issues in their ER.
So we're in one of our psych safe rooms.
Kids in Fort Worth and across the country wait in ER rooms like this one, stripped down for their protection.
They prevent you from being able to harm yourself. We've had length of stays over 36 hours in this room.
You feel terrible for the families when they're trapped here for hours, days on end trying to find placement.
More than 60% of youth with major depression don't receive any mental health treatment. Our investigation found 41 states with a severe shortage of child psychiatrists.
We got to go to where folks are.
The person in charge of this, Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra. We met with him in Dallas during a panel with young black men.
I was actually suicidal my senior year of high school because when people don't feel safe, people don't talk, people don't speak, people don't say anything, and they just deal with it. That's why you have people committing suicide. That's why you have people turning to drugs and alcohol, because they don't know where else to go.
They're crying out.
It starts with the youth.
Shame on us that we haven't prepared.
Is that acceptable that we've got young people in ERs all over with mental health issues all over this country?
No, it's not acceptable. It's not care. It's housing them.
Why hasn't the federal government done more until now?
It's pretty simple. Money.
We checked, and the Biden administration has dedicated more money to juvenile mental health than previous administrations. $1 billion over the next 5 years to pay for things like medical school to increase the number of mental health specialists, and a goal of doubling counselors in schools. But critics say those one-time grants are short-term answers.
Does Congress need to step up and treat this as a continuing problem that they need to fund better?
Absolutely. And that's why President Biden called this part of his unity agenda. This is something where red or blue, Republican or Democrat, we all know someone who needs help.
Our kids need us to be there for them.
You don't always see this kind of emotion from a school superintendent. But mental health is such a priority for Chris Smith and his Denver area community that they voted for a $15 million bond to build a combination mental health treatment center and school due to open this fall. Intensive care and classrooms where kids can slowly transition back to traditional school.
This is personal for you. Why?
Because I've been impacted by suicide, and I've been impacted by mental health. And so we need to do whatever we can to engage and push in and make sure that our kids feel loved, valued, and invested in.
Smith admits not every school district can pay for a solution this big, but for him, it's an investment they can't afford not to make.
Our kids need to know who they are, because if they walk into our schools and they feel loved, they feel invested in, and they feel valued, they won't hurt themselves and they won't hurt others.
Now, if you or someone you know is in crisis, you can get help from a suicide and crisis lifeline counselor by calling or texting a new 3-digit number. It is 988. When we come back, lesson learned. Leave the chimney climbing to Santa. That story is next on Mid Morning. Welcome back. A bizarre story in northwest Oklahoma City. A woman trying to break into a home gets stuck in a chimney, and it turns out it's not the strangest part.
In the early pre-dawn hours, the scene played out on Barbara Warner's roof.
Just in the cartoons and in the movies.
A scenario so crazy, even police who responded had a hard time believing it.
One came in and that girl was screaming in the fireplace and he said, "It's legit."
Barbara says around 5:30 in the morning, she was awakened by 3 loud booms.
And I believe it was that they were trying to break the chimney down. Then she started screaming, saying, "I can't get out, I can't get out." She was banging on the flue.
That's when Barbara called 911.
The guy that was with her took off and just abandoned her.
Upon arrival, we did find a person down approximately 15 foot down, stuck in the fireplace.
Fire crews, with the help of their rescue unit, worked for well over an hour to try and get the woman out. And finally, they were successful. The woman wasn't injured and was taken into police custody.
She mentioned that she would like to get some help, and I hope she can.
All right, from a food truck to a booming business, one man explains why his idea works. That story is next. All right, as part of the CBS series, The Dish, we meet a man on a mission to bring a more authentic taste of Mexico to the U.S. Dario Wolos was born in the U.S. but raised in Monterrey, Mexico. His goal is to introduce our taste buds to real Mexican tacos while surrounding us with everything he loves about the culture of where he grew up. The result is Tacombi, and a series of in New York, Miami, and Washington, D.C. area with plans to open dozens more from coast to coast.
It's nice to be back in here.
Yeah, it feels okay.
There's a good reason this old VW bus is parked in the middle of a New York City restaurant.
So the tacos would come over the top to people here?
Yep. We'd press the tortillas right here, and then we'd put them on the griddle.
The bus used to be the restaurant.
I cut open the combi, like basically cut the roof off it, right? So I could peel it back, so you could stand up inside.
But so you cut it with what, like a metal saw or shears or what?
You know those circular metal saws? Just got on top of the bus and just cut right through it.
So you only get one shot at that.
you do, you get one shot. Puro pico de gallo.
Dario Wolos has turned that shot into a gathering empire of taquerias, making Tacombi one of the fastest growing restaurants in America, all with a mission of sharing Mexican food and culture. And it started when he was just another 20-something working for an internet startup, looking for the comforts of home.
There was a taqueria in Boston, and I remember I would go to it, and it wasn't hitting that spot. Then this company asked me to open up the London office, and I go over there, and there was no Mexican food in London. I started talking about it a lot with my friends. One of them said, Dario, you should start your business here in Mexico. He's like, you don't know what you're doing. You've been talking about maybe opening it up in London, and maybe it's better you lose all your money here. And I was like, all right.
The name Tacombi is a mashup of the words taco and combi, meaning bus.
It brought together these two things that are common all over Mexico, ubiquitous. Every person in Mexico has at some point ridden in a combi, you know, a VW bus.
VW bus, yeah.
And tacos, you know, every street corner city of Mexico has awesome tacos.
With the office life behind him, he parked his first Tacombi outside a nightclub in Playa del Carmen. And when travel to Mexico slowed in 2009, he moved his bus to New York City.
I can take credit for starting Tacombi, but I can't take credit for what it is today.
He now has 15 restaurants open in 5 cities and hopes to take Tacombi to the rest of America and the world.
There's just so much positive intention that goes into delivering a taco. It's so simple, but there's just so much behind it.
As we learned when we stepped behind the counter with Oscar Hernandez, Dario's first hire at Tacombi and now the company's master taquero.
This is like one of our most popular tacos in Tacombi.
Hernandez showed us the Tacombi version of the famous Baja fish taco.
We use Atlantic cod. It's flaky, but it doesn't break when you fry it. And then we also dip it in beer batter.
The batter is made from Mexican beer, and when it comes out of the fryer,
it's a little tangy, spicy.
It's topped with a sauce made from Mexican chilies. And to keep it crispy, not salsa, but pickled veggies.
It's part of my daily diet. Yes, that's a perfect description.
Wow, so good.
When people ask you, like, how's that taco? And you say that, that's it.
How do people screw this up?
Something that I will definitely not recommend is go to the supermarket and pick up one of those bags that says Mexican cheese blend and add it to this taco. I mean, they're definitely...
Why? What's wrong with the Mexican cheese blend?
The Mexican cheese blend that I normally find on the supermarkets, I don't know what part was that coming from.
How much experimentation went into this as I take the last delicious bite?
There's been many thousands of tries at this. One of the things that we've learned over the years is how important the tortilla is.
So important, in fact, that when he couldn't find the quality of tortilla he was looking for in New York, he started making his own.
So no one's ever called you the Willy Wonka of corn?
Not yet, you're the first.
Inside a shiny new factory along the Brooklyn waterfront, he showed us the process of turning bags of corn into bags of corn tortillas.
We're making 150,000 tortillas a day.
150,000?
Yeah. And you can see when they come out, some of them, see how they fluff?
Yeah.
Right, and that's what makes a really good tortilla.
You know what I love, actually? There's like little imperfections, right? Everyone is a little different, just like if you're making it in a home kitchen.
Totally, pick your tortilla.
I love it.
So.
Oh.
A lot of people in Mexico, when you get tortillas on the table,
Yeah.
you roll it up and you'll dip it in your soup. Or
yeah.
you're kind of like the way Americans eat bread, right?
His Vista Hermosa chips and tortillas now ship out to grocery stores nationwide. And Shake Shack founder Danny Meyer has invested millions in a plan to eventually build Tacombe restaurants all across America. But Wullo says success for him is defined by more than just sales.
You've been doing this for how many years now?
Tacombe overall is
Overall.
17 years now.
And it came from a place of love. You still love it?
Yeah, totally. It takes me back to growing up in Mexico. It takes me back to where I started Tacombe. When I was in Playa del Carmen, I used to go buy my tortillas at a local tortilleria. And you step into these tortillerias, and just like we did now, you have that smell of the fresh corn being ground and then cooked. It's pretty special.
So you're thousands of miles away from home, but in another way closer than ever.
Yes, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Tony DeCopel, CBS News.
All right, we'll be right back to wrap things up. Stay with us. All right, stay connected with us. We'd love to hear from you. We will see you back here tomorrow.